So welcome to our 12th segment in our EMUE ACE webinar training series. And this time we're going to be talking about scheduling tasks in the dashboard. So presenting today, we have myself, Mike Harris. I'm the Senior Consultant and Operations Manager here at Databound Solutions. And with me today, we have the luck of having Danica Ortiz, our lead EMUE trainer and analyst, to help me along. So to get the most out of today's webinar, we do have a slightly different format. For those of you who have seen our other webinars in the past, it is a little bit different. So first, to unmute your audio, down in the lower left-hand corner of your participant screen, you're going to see an unmute button. At this point, the unmute button won't work, not until the end of the webinar when I unmute everyone's. So hang tight on that, but if you do have a question, we do have a couple of other options. First, if you're having webinar difficulties, you can chat to Danica or you can email her at dortiz@databound.com and she'll be willing to help you out and get you back on track there. And if you have questions about the webinar during the webinar, we have a couple of different options. First, we have Q&A, which is new to this platform that we're using, which is really nice. You're able to write a question and Danica can either respond to it, or if it's something that we think that will benefit the whole group, we'll save it until the end when we can get group participation involved with that. You can also send a chat to Danica or myself, and one of us will answer that chat during the webinar. And again, if it's something that we think will help the whole group, we'll probably hold off on that just until the end so that we can give everyone the benefit of that information. And again, we'll take questions via phone at the end. We'll unmute everyone and everyone can participate at that point. So today's focus, we've got a few different points. First, we want to talk about the Databound Task Launcher. And this is a tool that we use in conjunction with the online scheduling tool to make everything happen. Next, we're going to talk about scheduling a task in the dashboard. We're going to talk about managing scheduled tasks once they've been created. We want to talk about how all of this gives you more control of your script as well. So for the Databound Task Launcher, this is a service that runs on your PC. It's going to run in the background. It's not like EMUE where you're going to see a window pop up and something actually occur. It's just going to be running in the background so that you don't have to think about it. It's accessible through the services menu. So on the lower right-hand corner, you're going to have this little arrow. You're going to click it, and the Databound symbol is going to come up so that you can see it. It must be running for our dashboard to launch scheduled tasks. This service acts as an intermediary between the dashboard and your computer so that it manages all of the tasks that are being scheduled so that they can run on time. And it checks in with the dashboard every minute. Now this tool is available on our website under the Customer Community Downloads section so that you can download it at any point. Let's take a look at what this task launcher looks like. So I'm going to go and bring that up real quick. And you can see it right here moving around on my screen. This is really simple. You don't have to do a whole lot in this portion of the application. The only thing you really need is to add EMUE here. And so you see that it's already available on mine. If I go over here to the right, we have a couple of options. We can edit it, which will give me a window where I can change what it's named or the application path. You can see that the name's grayed out, and there's a reason for that. And that's because the application name is used in the dashboard right now. So it's telling you you can't do that unless you unschedule what's already scheduled here. What I can do is I can click delete. It'll say you want to delete this. When I click yes, again, I'm going to get an error message saying that I can't do that because there's something relying on this process already. So it's a way for us to error check ourselves and make sure that you're not deleting something that the dashboard's depending on and that your tasks are depending on. So instead, I'm going to show you how I would add this in the first place. I'm going to click Add Application, and I have to give it a unique name. So in this case, instead of saying EMUE by itself, I'm going to say EMUE2. And then for my application path, I can either type or paste into this application path, but we also offer this little browse tool. And this is going to come up and show us typically our main directory. Now, if it's not here already, you can find this by going to your C drive, to Program Files x86, to Databound Solutions, and then to EMUE v5. Now, for those of you who have uninstalled and reinstalled EMUE at all, this is probably pretty familiar to you. But if this is your first time, this is the pathway that you'd go to. And in there, you'll see the EMUE.exe application. All you have to do is click on that and click open, and that's going to provide that pathway there for you. When I click OK, it's going to give us this little message down here at the bottom that's saying, please wait while it's added to the dashboard. And then it goes away, and now I have two applications that the dashboard can use in order to launch my tasks. Now, since this is a duplicate, I don't really want it. I'm going to come over here, and again, I can delete the application. I can click yes. It says, please wait while we verify. Again, it's verifying with the dashboard that nothing's going on, nothing's depending on it. So now it's deleted, and we're all set. We're ready to use this in our scheduling. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. It doesn't actually close the application, it just closes the services interface. It's still going to exist in your service menu, but you can exit out of it if you really need to. So for scheduling a task, first, the important thing to know is that our scheduler has the same options that are available for the Windows Task Scheduler. So everything that you know and use in the Windows Task Scheduler right now is available in the Databound Task Scheduler. The next thing is that we add functionality. So if you notice in the screenshot down to the lower right, we have a scheduled start missed and a long runtime. So if something happens and this task does not get launched for some reason, the computer wasn't on or it wasn't able to launch it for whatever reason, it can send out an email to your email address or to a group email address, and you'd populate that right over in that text box, and we'll see that in a moment when we go into the system. The next notification is that there's a long run time. So if a task runs longer than you expect it to, so if you have a 5-minute process normally and it runs 3.5 hours, then you can tell it after an hour, after 2 hours, notify me that this task is still running. And that gives you an idea that something might be happening that you need to take a look at. So maybe it's in a debugging state, maybe it's just not able to get over something. You can change it there. Then lastly, and this is my favorite part, is that it has an easy user interface that's fun to interact with. So for those of you who have ever scheduled something in the Windows Scheduler, there's a lot of different screens, there's a lot of different dialogues that you have to go through and individual options and a lot of things to click and change and update. And it can be a little tedious if you're doing more than one schedule at a time. So for us, ours is very simple, and you'll see that in just a second. So why don't we go ahead and schedule a task. So right now I'm bringing up my dashboard. I have one on our test EMUE dashboard site here, and you can see that it just lands on the system view so far. The first step to this, though, isn't jumping in and scheduling a task. For those of you who have never used the scheduler before, which for most of the people on the call, this is true, we're going to go down to Manage Dashboards. And this would be something that your dashboard admin would have to do for you if you're not the dashboard admin. And we're going to come down here and we're going to click on the system that you want to schedule. Now right here, there's a new button that's been added to the interface. And when you first start, it's going to say Enable Scheduling. This is going to tell it that you want to use scheduling, that you want it to look on the system for the Databound Task Launcher, and that you want it to take over your scheduling responsibilities. So you'll click Enable Scheduling. It's going to come up with this small dialog here telling you the system name and are you sure you want to enable scheduling on the system. We click OK, and then the button changes to Disable Scheduling. So if I ever wanted to cut off scheduling for the system, if we were sunsetting the system for some reason, I could come in here and disable it so that I was absolutely sure nothing was going to launch on the system. But typically, once you enable it, you're going to leave it just as is. So next I'm going to come up to my task view. And as you can see, I have a few things scheduled in here already. So up on the top, we have Create a New Task. We have the same refresh button that's on the other screens. We have an Excel button, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and an Actions button, which we'll also get to as well. For right now, though, we want to create a new task. So I look over on the right-hand side, and you can see Systems. And right now, since I only have one system scheduled to this dashboard, I only have one system and all systems checked. If I uncheck one, it unchecks everything. If I uncheck it, you can see that no tasks are available. I recheck it, and now I'm scheduling to the training PC. So I'm going to come up here and click Create New Task. For this, I'm going to create a task name, and I'm just going to say example script. I'm going to come down to System, and it's going to give me a list of all of the available systems that I can schedule against. In this case, I only have one, so a really easy choice. And then I'm going to come over to Application to Run. The way it gets applications in here is by the process that we just completed in the Databound Tasks Launcher. So in the Databound Task Launcher, we added the process, we added the application, and now we can schedule it from the dashboard. So I click EMUE, and then I'm going to come down to process name. Now I can select from a drop-down list, and the way that things get populated in here is if I've ever run that script on my system before. So if you have a script that you've been running and now you want to transition it over here, if it's run on the system under the current version of EMUE and you've been reporting to the dashboard before, it will be listed in this list. If not, it's very easy. All you have to do is put the file to run in here and it will populate the process name. So let me show an example of doing that. I'm going to come here and I already have my window up and I have my script that I want to schedule. And as a trick for those of you who don't know this already, if you hold down your Shift key on your keyboard and while holding it down, go up and right-click the file, you're presented with a new option called Copy as Path. And you'll see that if I just right-click it without it, that option is no longer available. So you hold down Shift and right-click, and you're going to get Copy as Path. What Copy as Path does, it's going to copy this entire pathway up here. It's going to copy the file name, and then it's also going to put it in double quotes, which makes it nice and neat for you. So if I come here, I can paste it in here. And when I step off of that, you'll notice that the process name automatically comes up. So you have your process name of the EMUE script first, you have these little greater than symbols, and then you have the pathway that you're working with. That's kind of a double check. What that allows you to do is have the same name script in different pathways. So we can have a unique pathway for each script, even though they're named the same. Moving down to the command line, this is something that you would normally put into the Windows scheduler anyway. So we have two different switches, and what a switch is a / followed by some text that tells something about how you want it launched. In this case, I'm going to do auto start file. The other option that we could have done is auto start small. And saying auto start small is going to start EMUE in a small window, so everything's going to be collapsed down so that all you're going to see is the activity window. If we do auto start file, then it's going to start it in the regular sized EMUE. You're going to see the scripting window, you're going to see the tabs, all of that stuff is going to be available for you. The next thing you're going to put here is the same thing you put in file to run, and that is the double quoted string that leads to the pathway to your script. When we put that in there, that's completed our command line and we can move on to the next part. In this case, it's going to be scheduling. So you'll see different tabs here. We have once, we have daily, weekly, and monthly. And I want to talk a little bit about each of these tabs and why they're unique in some cases. So once is kind of self-explanatory. I just want this process to run once. So tomorrow morning, I want to run a process that I only want to run that one day. This is where I would schedule it. So I would come down here to my tool, I'd click on the clock icon, and you can see that it populates today's date and the current time, which is really nice, really convenient. But I could come down here, I could say tomorrow morning, and I can click on the clock icon, and it brings up a little clock interface. So I could schedule it to whatever time I wanted to. And it does 5-minute increments automatically, but you can schedule it for something else. You just have to type into it up here. And I can click this to select AM or PM. Let's say AM, I'd click off of it, and we'd be all set. Now for daily tasks, this is something that's going to occur on a regular basis, and theoretically every day. However, you can skip days. So again, I'd click Start, and I'm happy with that time. The difference here is the recur every and the repeat task. So recur every allows me to skip days. So if I say recur every one day, it's going to happen today on Wednesday, tomorrow on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, etc. If I did every 2, then it would do today, it would do Friday, and then it would continue skipping days every other day or every second day. And then repeat task allows us to do intra-day repetitions. So when I click that, it's going to ask me how much I would want to repeat it. So I could repeat this as you see in the example, every 1 hour, every 2 hours, every 15 minutes, and I would just type that in there. So 1 hour for a duration of however many days. So I'd say 1 day. Now every 2 days, this process is going to repeat every hour. So it gives me some scheduling flexibility there. The next step is weekly. And under weekly, this is where we can get really creative about which days of the week. And this is going to treat a week as Monday through Sunday. So you'd again give it a start date. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to continue on with that time. And then we're going to say how many weeks in a row we want this. So if we want it every week, we'd say every 1 week. If we want it every other week, we could say every 2 weeks, every third, fourth, etc. But it is just going to skip that number of weeks. So if I say 1, now I can come down here and click which days of the week I want it to process on. So maybe I don't want it to skip every other day because I don't care about Saturday and Sunday. Maybe I just want Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the task. Then I would do that under weekly as opposed to daily, where it's going to ignore whether it's a weekend or not. It's just going to keep going every other day. So Saturday and Sunday would most likely be involved. So under weekly, I can do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, make it nice and easy for myself. And again, I can repeat the task if I wanted to do so during the day that it's going to run. Lastly is monthly. Again, same thing with a start date. Then you're going to want to say which months you want it to work in. And so I can select multiple months here. So I can say January, February, March. So maybe I only want this to run during the first quarter of the year. And days or on, so I can say which days of the month I want it to be on. So first and third, and we can go all the way down to the end, and there is a last. So the last option is really nice because while the first always occurs on the first of the month, the last day of the month could occur on the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, or the 31st. So instead of having to have all of that information on you to figure that out, you can just say last and it will default to the last day of the month. So this is really nice for accounting processing, things that you know that you're going to have to clean up at the end of the month. You can schedule it for the last day of the month. Once again, you can repeat it during the day. Moving on from that, we've got our notifications down here that we spoke briefly of in the PowerPoint. So we have a scheduled start miss. So if I miss this, I want to retry for 5 minutes to try and get it to start. You may want more. So if you know that this server tends to have maintenance during this time, you may want to try for 10 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. After that time, you'd want to tell what email you wanted to send it to. So in this case, I'd put in my email. And it would know to send that to me if I missed a scheduled start. Same thing with long run time. If after 60 minutes, this is still not doing what I expect it to do, then we paste that in there and it would now send me an email once that was complete. Now the last check down here is run with other processes. Now this is really important for those of you who are running Saurian scripts. As you know, only one Saurian process can be running per PC at a time. So if you accidentally scheduled multiple things at the same time, that could lead to a crash between Saurian systems, and Saurian doesn't like that. So you have the option here to tell this whether it can run with other processes or whether it should not run with other processes. If I turn this off, and this is unable to start because another process is running, it would default back to these notifications and figure out whether it can launch itself or not. So if it's scheduled start and I say retry for 10 minutes and the other script that's blocking it is still running, then it would fail and it would just let me know that that didn't occur. So that's scheduling a task. So I'm going to go back to once and I'm going to schedule this for today. And instead of 8 a.m., I'm going to schedule this for 1:52 and we're going to say p.m. So that's going to schedule it for just a couple minutes out here. And now you can see that it comes up on the dashboard. So we have 4 scripts up here Example script, monthly update, patient migration, and Saurian registration. 4 different scripts that could be scheduled for different times. So let's go back real quick to our presentation. Once we have a scheduled task, we often need to manage it. And it's very easy. All we need to do is click on the edit button, and then on the edit button, make our adjustments and click OK. So just as we did before, if I wanted to change this script or change how it's acting, I would come here and I'd click edit. I'd make my changes, and then I would click OK. It's as easy as that. Unlike Windows, where you have to go in and change it and change a lot of different screens. And just to show you, this process did launch while we were talking. Now, for those of you playing the home game, it is actually only 1:51. And the reason for that is that when the dashboard checked in, it knew that the next time it checked in was going to be after this was supposed to launch. So one thing to note about our system is that it's going to be plus or minus 60 seconds from when you schedule it. So in most cases, that's not going to cause an issue for scripts, but just something to be aware of so that you know when your script is running and when it should be expected to start. So I'm just going to minimize that. And we'll go back here. The next thing to note is that we have some bulk task actions. The first thing you can do is move tasks to a different system. So you can take all of your tasks and copy them from your test system to your production system, from a system that you're sunsetting to a new system. You can move everything really easily so that you don't have to reschedule them on the new system. The next option is to copy tasks. So an example of that is that you can easily copy your tasks from your test system to your prod system, or vice versa. Doesn't matter, but it makes it easy for you. Again, so that you don't have to physically create those new script schedules. Next is changing the execution application, and we're not currently using this, but in the future, if we do support other platforms and other scheduling launching, then this might become applicable. Deleting selected tasks. So if you need to do some housekeeping, if you need to clean up your system, you can delete multiple tasks at once. This is good, so if you've done a lot of testing or put a lot of test schedules in your system to check it out, you can delete these quickly without having to go and delete each one separately. You can disable selected tasks, and you can enable selected tasks very quickly. So if I go back into the dashboard, as you saw, I had multiple scripts here. So if I wanted to disable several of them, I could come in here and I would go over to my actions button, and you see the different options here. So moving them, copying them, changing the execution application, deleting them, disabling them, and enabling them. The most common will be disabling and enabling, probably followed by deleting and then moving and copying. So right now I'm just going to click on disable, and I'm going to click execute. It's going to give me a pop-up, just making sure that I want to do that. And I click OK, and now you can see that the status of these is all disabled. As we look at this interface, you can see as well some other information that's useful. You have the task name. The host is the system that you've scheduled it on. The status is whether it's ready or whether it's disabled or any other status. The run trigger is a simple message that says when it's going to run and when the next run and last one run was for this particular script. The author of the schedule and when the schedule was created. So it gives you some flexibility, and you can sort all of these columns, as you can see up here. So I can click by last run, and it will allow me to sort. You can sort by name, you can sort by host PC, all of that good stuff. So this allows a lot of admin privileges that sometimes aren't available to Windows schedulers, because you would have to get onto each individual Windows system in order to schedule. You'd have to go to each individual Windows system to change a schedule, and you would have to go to each individual system to delete or update any of the other schedules that were on there. This gives you the centralization to do all of that from one platform. So you can manage 5 systems, you can manage 10 systems, you can manage 1,000 systems. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be available through the dashboard. So some other items that are of interest. The first one is backing up your tasks. So if you want a copy of this, to be backed up onto an Excel document, we do have this little Excel button that's available on the platform. So right here, if I click this and then open this document, in a moment, we will have the tasks. And you can see the task name, host status, all the stuff that you can see on the system anyway. We'll come right here, and you can see that we have next run and last run in here as well, once we expand that to be long enough. So this gives you a little bit of information where if you needed to do an audit or you needed to check to see what was on a system or systems, you could download this to your PC and do any type of reporting on it that you need to. Also, we mentioned switches earlier. When you have / auto start small or auto start file, if you need a refresher on some of the options that are available when scheduling, we do have a forum post that's located here, scheduling an EMUE script with the task scheduler. This does reference the Windows task scheduler at this point, but all of the options are still available in the Databound task scheduler as opposed to the Windows scheduler. One additional nice feature, and this is something that I really love about the updates that have occurred, is we've given you more control over your scripts. So with the inclusion of the DTL, we have some new options that have become available from the system view, from the script view, and also from the task view. And that's start and terminate. So start begins a new script process, and you can do that from today's queue or the history queue, so either of the tabs that are here. And then there's terminate, which ends a script process that's currently being run. Now, just a note about this though, since the DTL only checks in with the dashboard once a minute, there is a delay between when you click the button and when you see the action occur. So this isn't like clicking the abort on the system. It's not going to be that instant, but it will stop the script in the same way. So if you have something that's debugging and you want to stop the script and abort it, you can click terminate from the dashboard and it will stop it. But it will be within 60 seconds. So before we take a look at the process and review, we can see up here, if I wanted to go to my example script, I have the start here. And because it ran, it is also here as well. So I completed the script. That's a nice long pathway there. So right here we have start and we have terminate. So if I click start, I'm going to get a confirmation that says, am I sure that I want to do this? I click yes. And it's going to wait until the next dashboard check-in, and then it's going to launch the script. So right now, just wait for that. Should be happening in just a few seconds. And while we're waiting, we'll go back to our PowerPoint. So just to review the process, first we're going to schedule something in the dashboard. Then the DTL is going to check in with the dashboard each minute. And then lastly, the script is going to be launched. So those are the 3 steps that are involved in this process. Each one is as important as the others. So we have to have the dashboard schedule. We have to have the DTL installed on our PC. And then of course we have to have a script, which you can see that this one just started up and is processing right over here. So with this, when I refresh my dashboard, you can see that new instance of it is processing. I can come in here and click terminate. Are you sure you want to stop this task? And that's going to go ahead and stop it. And again, it will take another moment for it to get that information to the computer itself and to stop the script, but it will terminate here in just a minute. So I know we've gone through this pretty quickly, and so I want to turn over to Danica and see if we have any questions that we need to answer.
Thank you so much, Mike. Right now, we do not have any questions in the queue.
All right, excellent. Well, let me go over here and see if we can allow everyone to talk. All right. So everyone should be allowed to talk at this point. So if you do have a question, please feel free to speak up Again, I know we went through
Hi,
this.
it's Latara with Moffett.
Hey, Latar, how are you?
Good. I have a few questions.
Sure.
Only because we're your beta test and we've actually implemented it on a few servers, and I just have some specific questions for you.
Sure.
So for the scheduled start miss, so say that I wanted to retry for 5 hours. Is it going to retry after 5 hours or in during the 5 hours? Like, how does that work on the scheduled start miss?
That's a great question. If it isn't able to do it, it is going to continuously try to restart the task until it's either successful or it fails after that 5 hours. So 5 hours into it, if it has not been able to get one of the tasks to retry successfully, then it's going to send off that email. But
Got you.
very similar to how Windows Task Scheduler allows you to select an interval to retry, it's doing that as well.
And then we ran into an issue where we have multiple scripts that may run at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we turned on the run with other processes. But what I ran into is that I had one process that runs every 15 minutes after it starts that one program, and then it starts it again after 15 minutes. Is there a way to prevent that without turning off the run with other processes?
So it's starting a process and then it's starting the same process?
Well, I have it running every 15 minutes because I need it to run continuously,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want it to start until the first instance completes. So we
Okay.
have a few of these. Some of them run every hour, some every 30 minutes, but we don't want it to start again until the first instance completes. But since I had run with other processes turned on, it just kept restarting every 15 minutes.
Gotcha. The only way I believe we could do that right now is through the selector for run with other processes to make sure that it wasn't going to run with anything else. It would limit it as far as running with anything else, even if it was a non-Saurian script. So that might be a good
Would
takeaway
I
for us.
would I probably just need to schedule it multiple times, or I'm just trying to think how to get around it, or should just one server be dedicated to this and have it set to not run with other processes so that it won't restart?
If you have the ability to have its own server, that's always a great option because IE tends to be a resource hog. So when you have one IE window open, opening a second or a third tends to bog down the PC as you go along and get more processes running. So I'd always recommend having its own VM. It's just not always practical. If you have that option, I'd go with that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would say to not run with other processes, and I'll take that away and see if there's a better way that we can handle it, see if we can get that information back to you.
Awesome. And then I just want to provide feedback that since we already had our task scheduled on the server, when we did enable scheduling, it pulled all of our schedule into the task view.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have to do that whole create new. We just had to edit the application piece of it, which application to run on. So for anyone that had that question, yeah, we didn't have to create brand new schedules in our task list because it actually pulled everything in for us.
Yes, and that is true. That's great feedback. Thank you very much for sharing that with the group. Very good information. What other questions are out there? I did see one come through the chat. Which version of EMUE do we need to be on? That would be the latest that just came out. It is 1094. And you'll also need the DTL download, the Databound Task Launcher download, which will be available in, again, about a week or 2 weeks. But we'll be sending a notification out about that. So downloading 1094, EMUE 5.0.1094, and the DTL would be the requirement to get this up and running and working. And that's something that we're more than willing to work with you on as well. If you want to ping us to help you install those and get them up and running and check your system, we're more than happy to do that to help you out. Great question. What other questions are out there? All right, well, if you do have other questions or just need support in general, there are a few different options that are coming up on the screen now. You can go to our support page, which is databoundhealthcare.com/support, and there are a few different options. We've got some requests on there, or you can get other types of training and support materials. We have our forum, which is always out there, and I always encourage people to not only go there, but also to share scripts and get other scripts from other people from there. And if you have it, it's a great platform to share on. And lastly, you can give us a call at 1-877-DBS-EMUE. So we did have one come in. Can you review the Windows to Dashboard scheduling copy? So that's a great question. So let me pause and go there. So that's actually something that we can do from EMUE itself. So let me bring up EMUE real quick. And under Tools, we have the Launch Host Dashboard Maintenance. Now this is something you've used in the past to get connected to the dashboard, and this is something that we run on each system to make sure that that installation of EMUE is talking to the dashboard. So first you log in, or use your login information. Connected. And we click log on. Connection confirmed comes up. It shows your laptop, the system alias, and what time zone. So if you need to change your time zone, you can do that here. Down here at the bottom, it says send script schedules. When I click that, it says beginning transfer, and then all script schedules have been reported to the dashboard. So this would be how you would import all of your schedules and move them into the dashboard. From there, you would be able to edit them and add the system, just like Latara was speaking of as well. So super simple. Again, Tools, Launch Host Dashboard Maintenance, log in, and again, you have to ensure that you enable dashboard communication. This is by default something that happens when you install EMUE, but there is an option when you are first installing it for the first time to not communicate with the dashboard. So if you've done that in the past, you'd have to enable that. Log on, make sure your registration is good, and then click Send Script Schedules, and that's going to port all of those over for you. So great question. I'm going to close that out. So again, our support page, our community, and our phone. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate all of the great questions and great feedback. If you do have other questions, feel free to get in touch with us, or you can get in touch with me. My email is mharris@databound.com. I am always happy to help you guys out. So thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again on our next webinar.